Welcome back to class. And today we'll be discussing on global trade institutions, global trade institutions. And last module, we were able to look at the different theories that are related to international trade. And that's why we move forward to look at the global trade institutions that we have. And in today's interconnected world, global trade institutions are those ones that governs international economic interaction. And that is why we look into key players like World Trade Organization, which is WTO, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, World Bank, and UN Conference on Trade and Development. And these institutions are actually vested with the responsibility, with the power to manage globalization, trade liberalization, financial stability, and development financing. And we also have the regional blocks such as the EU, the ECOWAS, the USMCA, and the AFC. This deals with the Africa. So complementing global efforts by fostering integration and collective bargaining. So having the understanding of this, the structure and the function and politics is vital for analyzing the global trade pattern and the dynamics. So the first we'll be discussing, one of the first institution we'll be discussing is the World Trade Organization, which is the WTO. And this organization is actually established on 1st of January 1995 and is vested with the responsibility to facilitate multilateral trade negotiation. We'll talk about that in the coming module, and also administer trade agreements like GATS, the GATS, and TRIPS, and they also have the responsibility to resolve disputes through a rule-based mechanism. Also, they have the function to monitor trade policy for transparency. And lastly, they are vested with the responsibility to support developing countries with technical assistance. And what are the guiding principles that we can actually know, or we know with WTO? And the first is most favored nation treatment. They are well explained in the notes, and also the national treatment for imported goods. Another principle is the reciprocity in trade liberalization. And the last one is the transparency and binding commitments. What are the structure, the achievements, and the challenges that we can actually bring or see in as we talk about the World Trade Organization? The organization now structure, we have the Ministerial Conference, which is the highest decision-making body, and also the General Council. They have a comprise of the executive function and dispute settlement. They have the responsibility of performing the executive function and dispute settlement. The Secretariat deals with the daily operation, which is actually currently led by the Director General, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and the Specialized Council and Committee for Goods, Services, and Intellectual Property. The legal achievement and challenges. The achievement and challenges that WTO has is the legal certainty and dispute resolution with 600 plus cases. Also, the inclusion of developing countries via aid for trade. This is an achievement, the deadlock in Doha Round negotiation since 2001, and the appellate body paralysis since 2019, and um, this actually calls for the reform to address power asymmetry and sovereignty concerns. The next institution is the International Monetary Fund, which is the IMF, and this is established in 1944 at Bretton Woods Conference, and it was officially created in 1945. They have these core functions in terms of surveillance of economic policy, also financial assistance to countries facing balance of payment problem, and also they have they play responsibility role in capacity development through training and technical support. Um, what is their organizational structure? They have the board of governors as the highest body, and they also have the executive board for daily operations, and the quota-based voting system, which influence the power distribution. These are the organizational structure for IMF, and what is the role of IMF to global trade? First, it stabilizes exchange rate and also encourages market reform, and it supports low-income countries through concessional lending and debt relief initiatives. So they have the role of stabilizing exchange rates and also encourage market reform and support low-income countries through concessional lending and debt relief initiative. The achievements of IMF, the effective crisis management in Asian and global financial crisis. They are able to manage the Asian and global financial crisis. Also, they are able to ensure poverty reduction via the PRGT and HIPC initiative. And lastly, they have been able to promote global macroeconomic stability. And these are the achievements of IMF. While they also have the criticism, they are critique for conditionality often imposes um, austerity, social welfare, and also weighted vote in favor developed country. It's the weighted voting actually favors the developed country, especially the US. Also, the one size fits all policy may not fit all country, and they have been criticized for this too. And lastly, the insufficient focus on inequality, climate change, and inclusive development. These are the areas that the IMF have been criticized on. However, they also have recent reforms that they carry on in the recent time, and this include the 2021 SDR allocation, which is to boost liquidity in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, the climate risk integration in surveillance, which actually is a means to help countries finance climate transaction. And lastly, the exploration of digital finance and AI impacts. These are the recent reform that the IMF were able to carry out. The World Bank is another institution, being the third one that we'll be discussing, and they are for development and poverty reduction. This institution is created in 1944, and they have a role or function in this regard. They perform financial assistance via loan and grants for infrastructure and social projects. Also provide technical assistance and capacity building. And lastly, to ensure knowledge generation through research and policy advice. They have the achievements, which is major infrastructure and social program financing. So they've been able to ensure major infrastructure. They've given rise to major infrastructure and also practice social program financing also. And they also focus on climate resilience and sustainable development. They are criticized for uh, imposing austerity-driven structural adjustments, causing social and environmental harm, and also favoring rich countries in undemocratic governance. So most of their uh, policies, what they do, actually the social um, and environmental harm. I mean, they favor the rich nation more than those nations that are underdeveloped or they are just being developed. And this is an area that they actually need to work on. And the UNCTAD and the regional economic bloc. Um, this is established in 1964 to promote equitable trade for developing countries through policy research, consensus building, and technical cooperation. And they have the regional blocs. These include the EU, European Union, and the single market, custom union, and monetary union with the euro. And for the ECOWAS, it deals with the West African countries and West Africans integration with common external tariff. It deals with the integration with common external tariffs and the USMCA. This with the modernized NEFTA with digital trade and labor protection, and the AFC FTA, which is the largest African free trade area, which aimed at boosting intra-African trade. These are the regional blocs that are under the UNCTAD. In conclusion, we've been able to see the challenges that are being faced by trade institutions in terms of power balances, institutional paralysis, sovereignty concern, and needs for reform. However, despite these challenges, some of the institutions also experience reform needs and to do to ensure reform Rather, to ensure reform, there is need for enhancing governance and also bringing about inclusivity and and adaptability to address geographical and geopolitical tension, sustainable development goal. And lastly, in terms of a recommendation, global institutions and regional blocs must collaborate to create a balanced, inclusive, and sustainable trade system. And by this, we have come to the end of the third module. And next module, we'll be talking about the political economy of trade. Thank you.